All right, this is the Aunt Maggie story. I've told you this once before, but I don't think it was in the new videos. Uh, I called her Aunt Maggot after this, what had happened. I come home from RCA, bumper to bumper traffic along Kearney Avenue to my house. I'm working at RCA, and I go in the house. As soon as I come through the door, my mother's like, "You got to go over Aunt Maggie's house and bring her television here and change the picture tube." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I immediately shoot over to Aunt Maggie's and I get the television set. It's got two boosters on it. I don't know if you know what a booster is. It's a little box that goes on the back of the picture tube. And then you disconnect the picture tube and it's got a male and a female. You hook the female to the male socket on the tube. The other side goes to the socket that came up to the tube. And then there's a transformer, and it takes the like 6.3 volt AC signal to light the filament, and it boosts it up to say 7.5. She had two of them on the set in series, which you don't do, but she had that was her way. So I look at the picture. It's obsolete. The picture tube's gone. TV set's 15 years old. It's an all metal television set. It was like a GE. The body is the chassis is metal, the case is metal, and it's white on the side, and the front bezel area is like blue or orange, depending on whether it was a GE or an RCA, which is basically the same company. So I bring the TV home, and I immediately take the picture tube out, and I immediately jump in, and I know I can hit Burger Electronics and get over there. If I get in there over there at the right time, I can get the picture tube. So I go over, I got the number, and I give it to the guy. I said, "I need this picture tube." And I don't know, it was like 58 bucks or whatever it was. It's rebuilt. And then this guy isn't Burger. He's a guy that worked in Admiral and got laid off. And he kept going in circles with me. He goes, "Look, you need to bring the dud back." I said, "You have to have the dud in order?" No, but I'll give you money back for the dud because that tube's getting very rare, but it's still very popular. And the guy that rebuilds the tubes uses the old picture tube. I said, yeah. Just to shut him up, I told him, yeah, I would do it. So I now have the box. I got the rebuilt picture tube. I put it in the car. I drive all the way back. I got it. So I picked up the TV and immediately got back over and got the picture tube. I take the television down in the cellar and I swap out the picture tube. I clean it up, I oiled the tuner, and I checked everything out. It's working good. So the next day, I'm going to go to work at RCA, and I'm telling them the whole story. And everybody's like, "Yeah, that's a real standard. That's a standard job. You don't even have to do convergence on a black and white. You just have to make sure you get the ion trap the right way. It's a magnet that goes around the neck of the tube, and it prevents the gun from shooting electrons with ions." So I don't really understand it, but in other words, by putting a magnet by the neck of the tube, it causes the ions to go, say, at a right angle, and they don't hit the front of the screen, the white phosphor. If an ion hits the phosphor, the picture tube will go dim sooner. So I get that in there. Television's back together, and I go to work. I tell them the story, and they're like, "Yeah, it's a real common television." I come home, and my mother goes, "Aunt Maggie doesn't need the TV." I'm like, "What?" "No, she don't want it. Someone gave her another television set." Now, at that moment, Mike, who's my mother's best friend, stopped by for some reason to pick something up. He worked nearby, and my mother's best friend, that was her husband. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, I just been screwed out of $58, my time, whatever it was. And I mentioned her name, and Mikey grew up in that same town. He goes, She's a fucking barfly. Like that. She's a fucking barfly. And she just screwed you. I said, yeah, she don't want the television set. My mother started getting all flustered, you know? And she couldn't say anything to Mike about saying that's her grandmother, my grandmother's sister. She can't say anything because her best friend's husband's right there. And he goes, I went to school with her. She's a fucking loser. And I'm standing there, yeah, well, I'm down $58 right now. So, yeah. So it was funny. He leaves, and I'm sort of chuckling to myself. That's why I started calling her Aunt Maggot. And my mother just said, normally my mother would say, I'll give you the $58, but she didn't. I'm down $58. I got this stupid RCA, a GE set, which is also an RCA. And I went to work and I'm telling them, they go, you got to be kidding me. I said, I don't know what to do. I bought the picture tube, and then the guy that I bought the picture tubes for, he kept bugging me about driving back and giving him the old picture tube, and they rebuilt. I said, he's giving me $10. I said, I got to drive all the way over there, all the way back for $10. No, I don't want to do it. So one of the guys hears this, and he knows what television set it is, and he goes and pulls all the tubes. At the end of the day, he goes, I got a gift for you. He goes, here's all the tubes for that television set. I thanked him. You know, he went around. So I go home and I take all the tubes out of the TV set and I put these tubes in that he gave me. I turn around, it lets out a big whistle, and something popped. And I go in the next day and he goes, oh, yeah, I gave you those tubes. You didn't test them? I'm like, no. You gave me a set of tubes, right? In a paper bag, yeah. And you didn't say to me, before you put these in the set, you better test them. There could be a bad one in there. Yeah, there could be a cathode heater short. There could be all kinds of stuff wrong. And then the guy next to me, he's smoking his pipe. He's laughing. The engineer's on the next side of the wall. He comes out and he goes, you gave this guy a bunch of tubes? Well, he put a brand new, a rebuilt picture tube in a set for some old lady, and she don't want the set. He's telling her, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, this is the stuff I go through. My mother says, go fix this. And I'm supposed to have enough money now that I can afford to lose $58. But the funny thing is, back then I wouldn't spend $58 on myself for new shoes unless I had to. And there's $58. It's gone. The set now needs to be troubleshot. When that week, garbage night, Thursday night, that set was out on the front on the sidewalk or on the curb to go for garbage. And my father said something. I said, I don't want that television set. He goes, well, it's got a good picture to it. He's got a rebuilt in it. I said, I don't want that thing near me. I don't want to think about that set. And he goes, and then my Uncle Chuck got involved in it. And he goes, oh, yeah, you don't get involved with Aunt Maggie. And, you know, I said, I called her Aunt Maggot after that. He goes, you don't get involved with her because she changes direction like the wind. And my mother sort of knew this, but my mother would get such pleasure in having me fix things for her friends. And I think I told you the story. A guy owed me money. And instead of paying me money, he gave me a gross of 40-watt light bulbs. So I bring the box home, and this isn't the story about the radios, that the clocks. That was another story. I bring the light bulbs home, and I don't think about it. They're in the cellar, and they're going to go to the flea market. And I come in from work, and the phone's ringing. I go, hello? And it's this woman that my mother's I worked with her, and my mother worked with her. And she's a nut job. And she says, I need 60-watt light bulbs. You gave me 40s. I'm like, who the hell's this? And she told me her name. She was a nut job. Her son, the whole family was wackadoodles. And she goes, your mother gave me a bunch of 40-watt light bulbs. I said, yeah, she gave you my 40-watt light bulbs. And she says, well, I don't want 40s, I want 60s. I said, did you pay for them? She says, no. I said, someone owes me money, and instead of paying me the money that they owed me, they gave me light bulbs. And now my mother gave you the light bulbs for free. So, am I correct? Yeah, she says, but I have no use for 40-watt light bulbs. You owe me some 60s. And I'm like, no, I don't. I hung up on her. And then later that night, my mother says, you hung up on so-and-so? I says, yeah. She demanded that I give her some 60-watt light bulbs. And I said, and the second thing, who told you you could go and start giving the light bulbs away? My mother took the light bulbs into work and gave them away to people. They got them home and realized they're only 40 watts. And they all wanted me to replace them with 60s. I'm not kidding you. You know, and then the same thing happened with I'm in the electronic barn, and he's got a clock. It's a little square clock. It's got a picture on it. It lights up. It's a little square cube. It's a cute little clock. And he's got one on display that's on, and he has a big sign, please don't open the boxes. So I'm standing there talking to him, and what the hell was his name? Oh, not Mike. Was it Mike? Anyway, he's standing there, and out of the corner of his eye, he sees the guy opening the box. And he says something to the guy. He goes, there's a one out on display. The guy goes, no, I want to check this one out in the box. So they have words. The guy leaves the electronic barn, and the guy goes to me, is your car outside? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, how much money you got on you? I don't know what I had on me, but I won't say there was 144 of those clocks. There was a lot of them. And we carried the box out, and in the box were all these clocks that had been taken out of the box, and the instructions were all, I went home and I repacked all these clocks back in the original box. Now I'm going to take them to a flea market and sell them. My mother takes them into work. She starts giving them to people. And then my mother's friend come up to visit her, and they loaded the car up. She took them down to the family. Well, after the clock is on like 4 or 5 months, there's a light bulb that lights up the scenery, and it goes out. They start calling me up. And my mother says, you got to replace those bulbs. And I'm standing there, I don't know what the hell to do. So I changed the bulbs, and then they complained that you could see the seam in the light bulb in the picture. So I had to take those clocks back, and I went to a hardware store, Bernie's in, I think that's North Arlington, Lyndhurst. He had such old light bulbs in this drawer, and they were blown in the United States. There's no seam in them. See, the Japanese bulb or Chinese, whatever it was back then, they were two halves, and that seam would show up in the picture whenever you light it up. So I had a bunch of clocks that they got for free. The light bulb burnt out, and at some point my father spoke up, and he got really nasty with my mother. He goes, you gave away his clocks, yeah, and now the bulb burns out, yeah, and you think he has to replace the bulbs in the clock? What would be a nice thing to do? Yeah, it would be a nice thing to do if you only gave 1 or 2 away. Yeah, this is my life. But see, when you're living with your parents and you have to put up with more stuff than normal. If you're married, you have to put up with this crap. You don't know. But I'm sitting there, and I'm like a target. I come home from work. I come through the door. I'm tired. I worked, and I didn't do a regular job. I've never done a regular job. The boss or in RCA, tomorrow we're loaning you out to another section. You got to go over there and bail them out. And you go over and you put up with their nonsense, and you get them all straightened out. You come back and you're like, well, it's 4 o'clock. I get to go home. And then you come through the door, and my mother's waiting there with her nonsense. So-and-so wants you to fix her television set. All right, so I look it over, and it needs a compactron. And the compactron is a tube that there's 3 tubes inside the envelope, and they can be pricey. So I call her up, and the woman says, well, give the address to my son. He'll go pick it up. I said, well, it's still an expensive tube. And I said, you can use my name. You'll get it at a discount. So she calls back, and the tube was like $28. I said, yeah, there's 3 tubes in now. That's just the way it goes, So anyway, this kid shows up at my house. He gives me the tube. I put it in the TV. It comes right on. We got the audio. Everything's working. I give it to the kid, and he leaves. And a couple days later, He comes back to the house with $3 with a rubber band around it and a bin of homemade peanut butter. This is what they think they should pay me for television repair. So I go out, I come back, and my mother's sitting on the. She used to sit and be on the telephone, and she's eating the peanut butter with her finger, and there's none left. It's gone. So basically, that repair I got $3. So she got off the phone, and it was with the woman that I fixed the television. And I called her up. I said, "You think $3 and a bin of peanut butter is correct payment for that repair?" And I said, "I told you what was wrong with the TV. I told you where to get I was going to go get the part, but they didn't trust me." She says, "Well, I didn't trust you to mark the tube up." I said, "I wasn't going to mark the tube up because it's a compactron and it's very expensive." Well, anyway, so I got $3 for repairing that television set. And my mother was there's something wrong with her, and my father was sort of senile. I don't know. And there's these guys on TV and stuff. They say when you look back at your parents, you'll be amazed at how smart they were. No, no. So lately, I've been asking people about their parents, and a lot of I told you my best friend says, "I'd rather be shot than say anything bad about my parents." Okay, that's your opinion. So I go out and I'm walking. I tell you, I go walking, and I meet a stranger, and I'm talking to him. I said, "Did you go to college?" "Yeah." I said, "When you look back, what do you think about your parents?" And he says, "Well, it's really not fair. My dad never went to college, but he was happy I went to college." And the whole thing, I said, "But," he says, "Well, you got to realize my father was in I don't know, feeding horses out here, feeding cattle. That's what he did. And then he made enough money to make sure that his son went to college and did better than him." He says, "But yes, I'm smarter than my father was, and more intelligence, better. Yeah, in other words, more polished, more worldly." But that was an honest opinion, right? So I started doing that with people, and the guy on television or on one of the YouTube videos said that you'll be amazed when you look back on your parents how smart they were. And then I'm like, that ain't happening. You know, how many ridiculous things they got me into. All right, here's one. My dad was a toolmaker, and down on the corner, down from my house, was Homelite chainsaw. Homelite chainsaw. What could go wrong? All right, so one of the guys at work that worked with my father was sawing through a tree branch, and in the tree was a stone or something, or he hit the ground with the chainsaw, and it immediately dulls it. So he takes the chain off, he gives it to my father, and he says, "Can you get your son to?" So I come home from work, and now I got the chain, and I got to go down to Homelight and get there before they close. It's only down the street. I give it to the guy. I said, "You need it sharpened. It'll be ready tomorrow." So the next day I come back, and they run it through a machine, but it leaves like a burr on this. When it cuts the blade, it leaves like a burr on it. As soon as you put it on the chainsaw and hit the wood, that burr comes off, and you have a super sharp blade. But it leaves this like tinfoil burr, and you can actually move it with your fingernail. Well, I give the sharpened saw blade back to my father, and he goes into work. And the guy, he's not a toolmaker like my father. I don't know what he was, but he knew where my father lived. He knew my father lived near Homelite. Maybe my father mentioned it. So he sends me the blade back. The guy don't like the way the blade looks. So I look at it and I see like the blade isn't sharpened the way I would do it. So I go back to Homelight, and the guy got really pissed at me. I've been sharpening blades for 30 years, and I know that can be bullshit. I know it, and an a-hole that screws up can say that, but the chainsaw is not sharp. And I said to the guy, "Well, what about this burr?" He says, "As soon as you put that on the chainsaw, fire it up, and as soon as you hit the wood, that disappears and you have a really sharp edge. That's the way they do it. And if there are self sharpeners, but this is the way Homelite was cutting the freaking blades. And a blade back then was like $6 to change it, and they got 3 to sharpen it. And there I am, my free time, going back twice, getting the guy yelling at me. I gave it to my father. My father took it back. He had a fight with the guy. The guy took the blade home, fired it up, and it worked. It worked perfectly. And then my mother got involved. Like, you got him going to the thing and getting yelled at by Homelite and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you do the same shit to me. My mother's like, what? I said, I fixed the television set. I put a tube in it, a picture tube, rebuilt, and I never got paid for that. I started naming all this stuff. You gave my light bulbs away, and I got people calling me up. They don't want 50s, 40s. They want 60s. I said, you gave my clocks away, and you got people that want me to change the light bulb for them for free. Yeah, the 2 of them, And that's why when I watch Everybody Loves Raymond and the mother's logic, I laugh hysterical. First of all, her name in real life is what, Roberts? Right? That's my mother's last name in real life. Same hairdo, same chubbiness, same nosiness. I used to call my mother Nosy Rosie. My mother used to open my mail. I was 20-something years old. I'd come home and find my mail all opened up. And there were girls I used to bicycle ride with that write me a nice letter. And I'd say to them, oh, yeah, it's a girl I rode with. And I mentioned something. That's not what she said in the letter. And I know she opened it and read it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. So, yeah. But that's why when I watch Everybody Loves Raymond and the mother screws, like the time she screwed Robert over, she wrote a letter to the FBI. That's gold. I laugh hysterically. My mother says, well, I'll give a call. She called one of my bosses up at a place I work. And then as soon as I come in, and he says to me, I'm not going to be getting the calls from your mother every day, am I? I said, no, I took care of her. He goes, what the hell's wrong with her? I said, she's got a problem. All right. Yeah. She wanted to know how come I kept getting raises. You're getting too many raises. Yeah. Oh, brother. But that's the stuff I went through. All right. And there's no fixing it. I can't go back and fix it. But I would stand there and, you have to have respect for your parents. And then I found out that not everybody does. They had me believe in all this stuff. Well, it's wrong. Like the minister would say to me, it's wrong to talk back to your parents. It's like the famous wallet story. I have 2 friends. And one's been grounded. He can't go down to a company and hang out that his father owns. He's been grounded. So it's me, him, and another kid. We're walking along, and down in the leaves on the road, I see a wallet. I drop down. I pick the wallet up. As soon as I open it, there's money. There's a stack of money in that thing. It was like $170. As soon as I open it up, the one kid that robbed his mother all the time, he tries to grab it. And then the bigger kid who's grounded, he just grabs it, holds on to it. And we come back home. And we ended up giving it back to the guy. My mother wouldn't let me take any reward. And then the one kid just went on and on and on for days about how he should have been able to keep the reward. And then I started asking people, if you found somebody's wallet, would you take the reward and all that? And the minister told me, here's what he said. He says, I would have took the money, put it in my pocket, and put the wallet in the mailbox. I said, you got to be kidding. Then like a week, the next Sunday, he pulled me over and he goes, that was really the wrong information that I gave you. He says, you did the right thing giving it back. But, I give wallets. When I find a wallet, I shouldn't really mention this because every time I mention it, I find one. I bring a wallet back. I told you about the cell phones. I bring the wallet back, and then the person opens the wallet, takes the money out, and counts it in front of me. They never give me a reward. They just count it in front of me and just stare at me, like trying to remember, did I have more money in the wallet? Did he take some of the money? Yeah. Now I'm telling you, I walk past wallets and cell phones. I walk right past them. I did not worth touching because I'm not going to take a reward. The one guy telling me that on the road crew, I think I told you, He finds phones all the time. I said, yeah. I said, and he says, it's always a pain. I said, yeah, I know it is. You give it back to the person. And it's almost like you might have made calls to another country on it or something. They give you this weird look. But I said, you know what you can do? You go over to Walmart, and there's a machine you can lay the phone in, and it'll test the phone, and it'll give you money for the phone. He goes, you got to be kidding. I said, I wouldn't do it, but maybe you want to do something like that rather than put up with the person. But I just want to tell you, like I said, when I look back on my parents, they give stuff. They would give stuff away to the relatives. The relatives say, my refrigerator really isn't working well. So my mother had a newer refrigerator. She gave the refrigerator to her sister, and they would claim it didn't work when they got it. They sold it. They had a refrigerator. They would do that. My mother caught on after a while, but there was a lot of nonsense. And then the one uncle who was in TV repair with my dad, he warned me about the one uncle that was bringing stuff to me to fix all the time, and he said it was his. And then he goes, no, he'll tell you that, but he's getting favors at work. And then I called him on it, and he didn't care. He didn't care that I discovered that he had been lying to me. Yeah, oh my God. I had some white trash relatives, and I think there's still a few of them alive. Oh, I'm on my mother's side now. I won't say on my father's side. They were okay. I only hung with them once a year. But yeah, you look back on your family and you're like, oh, and then the girl at the bank. One time I'm sitting there and I'm talking to her. I said, I'm having trouble with my sister, and then she knew because my sister would wherever I would bank, my sister would move her money to, and so she goes, yeah, I sort of knew you weren't doing well with your sister. I said, I only have one sister. So the girl says to me, let me tell you something. She says, I have a brother and a sister I won't talk to, but I hear about them through the other brothers and sisters. She says, it's very common not to get along with a brother and sister. I said, but I only have one. And then I told her, she knew some of the crap my sister was pulling because my sister was getting into trouble with money at the bank, and she was trying to pull some shit on the girls at the bank. It was so funny. I had my money at that bank first. And then my dad put his money there, and then it became my father. This is Mr. Kleinbauer's son, John. And then when my father died, my sister moved her money into the bank. This is Norma's brother. That's how I was treated, you know. And then this one kid that he's a pedophile. He used to call me in church. He used to punch me all the time at church. I should mention his name. He used to call me Little Norma just to piss me off. Yeah, he was a real strange dude. Yeah, he did some time. Yeah, it all comes out. You know, I stayed the nice guy that I am, and I'm getting very careful with helping people lately. I've gotten better. I say no more often. When I go for a walk, I go out a different way in the neighborhood so I don't bump into anybody that might want something. They always want something, and then they get mad at you if you say no. So it's a game. It's all a game, you know, and they're never going to do anything in return for me. So it is what it is. But I just want to tell you about Aunt Maggot. Yeah. Oh my God, it is so funny. I'm standing there, and I'm punch drunk, and this guy Mike's there, and he knows her. He knows Aunt Maggie or Aunt Maggot. She's a barfly. She's a fucking barfly. She's never done anything for anybody. And my mother can't say nothing at all because that guy is her best friend's husband, and they all knew each other when they grew up. So what Mike was saying about her was absolutely true. You know, if someone offers her a TV set and it works better than the one I took home to fix, why pay me the money she owes me? And I don't even know if she would have paid me the full $58. Oh, so years later, Aunt Maggot dies, and my mom was gone, and I think my grandmother had died too. And my aunt calls me up. She says, I need money to bury Aunt Maggie. I just started freaking laughing. I said, take it out of the money she owes me. And I hung up. Then she called me back later on. She what? I said, you don't remember the repair? Oh, really? I said, I hold a grudge forever. So I said, that's not my aunt, that's your aunt. And I said, she screwed me over, so I'm not paying to bury her. You know, yeah, I can be nasty when I'm pushed to the edge. I think that's it. All right, that's it. What a life. What a life.